As the first rays of the sun peeked through the branches of the tall maple trees, casting a golden glow on Emily's bedroom, she sat cross-legged on her bed, eyes glued to the screen in front of her. Her fingers moved with lightning speed, controlling the actions of her virtual character, a fierce huntress armed with a bow and arrow in the immersive video game The Hunt. Emily's face was lit up with excitement, her bright blue eyes sparkling with intensity as she navigated her way through the dense virtual forest, stalking her prey with precision. She had spent countless hours honing her skills in the game, becoming one of the top players in her online community. It was her escape, her refuge from the challenges of the real world. Outside her window, the neighborhood was slowly awakening to the crisp fall morning. The leaves had turned into a riot of red, orange, and yellow hues, and the air carried a hint of chilliness. But Emily was oblivious to the changing season, lost in the virtual realm of the game. She had always struggled with self-esteem issues, feeling like an outcast at school. But in the game, she was a formidable warrior, respected and admired by her fellow players. It was in the virtual world that she found a sense of purpose, a place where she could be truly herself. With a victorious shout, Emily slew a virtual monster, earning valuable points and rewards. She grinned with satisfaction, feeling a surge of accomplishment. But her joy was short-lived as something caught her eye outside her window. A flicker of movement in the park across the street made her pause. She squinted, trying to make out what it was. A chill ran down her spine as she realized that there was no one there, and yet she had seen something. Her heart pounded in her chest as she quickly closed the game and peered out the window. The park was empty, but an eerie silence hung in the air. Emily's curiosity and sense of unease were piqued. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off, that the virtual world of the game was intruding into her reality. As she stepped outside, the crisp autumn air hit her face, and she scanned the surroundings with a sense of foreboding. A rustle in the bushes made her jump, and she spun around, but there was no one there. Her mind raced with questions, and a sense of dread settled in her gut. With a determined glint in her eyes, Emily decided to investigate further. She couldn't believe that the game she was so obsessed with had somehow come to life, and she was determined to uncover the truth. Little did she know that her virtual obsession was about to take a sinister turn, plunging her into a nightmarish reality where the lines between the game and the real world would blur, and she would face horror beyond her wildest imagination. Emily's curiosity got the better of hers as she delved deeper into the mystery that had unfolded before her. She couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched as she ventured into the park, her eyes darting around for any signs of movement. The once familiar park now seemed different, somehow twisted and distorted. The trees loomed overhead like dark sentinels, their branches clawing in the sky. The once inviting paths now seemed to lead into menacing darkness, and Emily's footsteps echoed eerily in the silent air. As she explored further, Emily stumbled upon a dilapidated building at the heart of the park. It was covered in creeping vines, its windows shattered, and its walls oozing with decay. Curiosity and dread warred within her, but her determination pushed her to investigate. Emily cautiously entered the building, her senses on high alert. The air inside was musty and cold, and the only source of light was her flashlight, casting eerie shadows on the decaying walls. The floor creaked beneath her, and she held her breath, listening for any sound that would betray the presence of another. Her heart skipped a beat as she spotted something that sent shivers down her spine. It was a familiar emblem, the logo of the Hunt game, emblazoned on the decaying walls. Her mind raced with questions as she realized that the game had somehow manifested itself in the real world, and that the virtual character she had been playing had come to life. The realization was chilling, and Emily's instincts screamed at her to leave the building and run, but her curiosity pushed her further. She pressed on, her flashlight revealing more unsettling clues: bloodstains on the floor, claw marks on the walls, and a sense of malevolence hanging in the air. As she turned a corner, she came face to face with a grotesque creature, resembling the monstrous beasts she had encountered in the game. It snarled at her, its eyes glowing with a sinister light, and Emily's instincts kicked into overdrive. Adrenaline pumping through her veins as she raced through the dark corridors of the building. The creature pursued her relentlessly, its monstrous form crashing through walls and barriers in its pursuit. Emily's mind raced, trying to come up with a plan to escape. She stumbled upon a hidden room, and with a desperate leap of faith, she threw herself inside and slammed the door shut behind her. The creature's roars echoed in her ears as she locked the door, her breathing ragged. In the dim light of the hidden room, Emily took a moment to collect herself, her mind reeling with the unsettling discoveries she had made. She realized that she was now trapped in a real-life horror game, and the stakes were higher than ever. Emily's heart raced as she delved deeper into her investigation, driven by a burning curiosity and a nagging sense of impending danger. She had become consumed by the mystery of the virtual game character that seemed to have come to life and was now hunting kids in her neighborhood. Her once mundane existence had been turned upside down, and she found herself obsessively researching the history of the game, trying to uncover any clues that could explain the bizarre events unfolding around her. She spent hours scouring the internet for any information that could shed light on the origins of the haunting figure. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Emily ventured into the dark and deserted park, the very same park where she had first witnessed the flicker of movement. She felt a sense of trepidation, but her determination overpowered her fear. With her flashlight casting eerie shadows on the trees, she moved cautiously, her senses on high alert. The familiar sounds of the game's forest soundtrack echoed in her ears, intensifying her unease. She couldn't get rid of the feeling that she was being watched. Suddenly, a rustle in the bushes made her jump. She swung her flashlight toward the source of the sound, but there was nothing there. Her heart pounded in her chest as she pressed on, her steps quickening in anticipation. As she approached the clearing where she'd first seen the game character, a figure emerged from the shadows, sending a chill down her spine. It was the same character from the game, but now it was in the real world, and it seemed to be taunting her. The creature's glowing eyes pierced through the darkness, and Emily could feel its malevolent presence. She tried to confront it, but it vanished into thin air, leaving her trembling with fear. Determined to unravel the mystery, Emily decided to dig deeper into the game's history. She uncovered rumors of a cursed character that was supposed to have been trapped within the game for decades, seeking revenge on those who played it. The more she uncovered, the more convinced she became that the virtual world had crossed over into reality, and she was in grave danger. As Emily delved further into her investigation, she found herself increasingly isolated from her friends and family, consumed by her obsession. Her once bright and cheerful demeanor had turned into a constant state of paranoia and fear. With each passing day, the haunting figure from the game seemed to grow bolder, appearing in unexpected places, always just out of reach. Emily's grip on reality began to slip as she struggled to distinguish between the virtual and the real world. Emily found herself on the edge of a precipice, caught in a harrowing game of cat and mouse with a supernatural entity that seemed to have no intention of stopping. Her journey into the depths of horror was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she raced through the dark and desolate streets of her neighborhood. Her mind was a whirlwind of fear and panic as she tried to make sense of the horror that had unfolded before her. After the eerie encounter at the park, Emily had been on edge, constantly looking over her shoulder and feeling a sense of impending doom. But she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was being watched and that someone or something was stalking her. As she reached her house, she fumbled with her keys, her hands trembling. She quickly unlocked the door, and as she stepped inside, she slammed it shut, locking it behind her. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she leaned against the door, trying to catch her breath. Her mind raced with questions. Who or what was after her? Why had her beloved game turned into a nightmare come to life? And most importantly, how could she stop it? Emily knew she couldn't stay hidden in her house forever. She needed answers, and she needed to confront the source of her terror. With a sense of determination, she made up her mind to return to the virtual world of the game, hoping to find clues or answers there. She booted up her computer, her hands shaking, and logged into the game. But as soon as she entered the virtual forest, she realized that something was different. The once familiar landscape now felt twisted and distorted, with dark shadows lurking in every corner. Her character moved cautiously, bowing at the ready, but she couldn't eradicate the feeling of being watched. Every step she took was accompanied by a sense of impending danger. Her heart hammered in her chest as she scanned her surroundings, looking for any clues. Suddenly, she heard a guttural growl behind her, and she spun around, arrow notched in her bow. But there was nothing there, just darkness and the eerie silence of the virtual forest. A sense of dread washed over her, and she realized that she was no longer in control. The game had come alive, and the nightmare was closing in on her. She tried to log out, but her attempts were futile. She was trapped in the game, being hunted by a monstrous entity that had crossed over from the virtual world to the real world. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Emily ran through the virtual forest, desperately trying to escape the relentless pursuit. But the game had become a twisted nightmare, with obstacles appearing out of nowhere and the once familiar paths leading to dead ends. As she stumbled through the dark and eerie landscape, Emily's fear intensified. She knew that if she didn't find a way out soon, she would be trapped in the game forever, at the mercy of the vengeful entity that was hunting her. With her heart in her throat, she pushed herself to the limits, her virtual character running for her life. She had to find a way to defeat the nightmare that had come to life, to break free from the virtual prison, and save herself from a fate worse than death. Emily's heart hammered in her chest as she crept through the dark, abandoned warehouse. The air was heavy with the stench of decay, and she shuddered as she cast her flashlight beam around, revealing the crumbling walls and broken windows. Her journey had led her here, following clues and eerie occurrences that seemed to defy logic. She had encountered inexplicable phenomena, ghostly whispers, flickering lights, and blood-curdling screams that seemed to echo through the desolate halls. Her once confident strides had been reduced to cautious steps, her mind plagued with fear and uncertainty. She couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, of being hunted. It was as if the virtual character that had come to life was now stalking her in the real world. Emily's pulse quickened as she turned a corner, and her flashlight flickered ominously. She clenched her jaw, refusing to let fear overpower her. She had come too far to turn back now. As she descended into the lower levels of the warehouse, the darkness thickened, and the air grew colder. She felt a chill crawl up her spine, and her instincts screamed at her to leave, but she couldn't abandon her mission. A sudden creaking sound echoed through the warehouse, and Emily froze, her breath caught in her throat. She strained her ears, trying to locate the source of the noise. Her flashlight flickered again, and she gripped it tightly, her knuckles turning white. A figure materialized from the shadows, and Emily's heart skipped a beat. It was the game character that had come to life, a grotesque, twisted version of its virtual self. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and its movements were unnaturally fluid. Emily's instincts kicked in, and she raised her bow, drawing an arrow to her cheek. She aimed carefully, but her hands trembled. The game character advanced towards her with eerie grace, its intentions unclear. With a deep breath, Emily released the arrow, but it passed right through the game character as if it was made of smoke. The character laughed, a sound that sent chills down Emily's spine, and lunged at her. She screamed, dodging its attack, and ran towards the exit. Her footsteps echoed through the warehouse as she raced through the dark corridors, her heart pounding in her ears. She could feel the game character's presence close behind her, its laughter echoing through the halls. Emily burst through the exit, her lungs burning with exertion, and stumbled into the open air. She glanced back, but the game character had vanished. She was alone, but the sense of dread lingered, and she knew that the game character was still out there hunting her. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting eerie shadows on the deserted streets of the sleepy town. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she raced through the empty alleys, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had been relentlessly pursued by the virtual game character that had somehow escaped into the real world, and she was determined to put an end to the nightmare once and for all. Her once vibrant blue eyes were now wide with fear, and her face was streaked with dirt and sweat. Her clothes were torn, and her bow, her trusty weapon in the game, had been reduced to a broken piece of wood during her harrowing escape. She had lost all her points and rewards, and her once formidable skills seemed useless in this real-life horror. Emily's mind raced with questions, but she had no time to ponder. She could hear the creature's menacing growls, the sound of its claws scraping against the pavement, getting closer with each passing moment. She knew she had to find a way to defeat it, or it would hunt her down and end her life. She stumbled into an abandoned warehouse, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. Her heart hammered in her chest as she desperately searched for a weapon, anything that could give her an advantage. Her hands trembled as she grabbed a metal pipe, her only hope for defense. Just as she turned around, the creature lunged at her from the shadows, its eyes glowing with a malevolent rage. Emily swung the pipe with all her strength, landing a solid hit on the creature's shoulder. It screeched in pain and staggered back, but it quickly recovered and charged at her again. Emily's mind raced as she dodged its razor-sharp claws, her instincts and reflexes kicking into overdrive. She swung the pipe with all her might, aiming for its head, but the creature was relentless, refusing to be deterred. She felt her energy waning, her body bruised and battered from the relentless pursuit. Just as she thought she couldn't hold on any longer, she spotted a trapdoor on the floor. Without hesitation, she pulled it open and scrambled down a narrow staircase, her heart in her throat. She slammed the trapdoor shut, cutting off the creature's pursuit. In the darkness of the underground, Emily's breathing slowed, and she realized she had escaped, at least for now. She knew she couldn't stay hidden forever, and she needed to come up with a plan to stop the creature once and for all. With a renewed determination, she took a deep breath and set her mind to strategizing her next move. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously made her way through the dark, abandoned warehouse. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, as she searched for any sign of the elusive game character that had come to life and was now hunting kids in the real world. The smell of dampness and decay assaulted her senses, and the air was heavy with tension. Every step she took echoed through the cavernous space, sending shivers down her spine. She gripped her bow tightly, her knuckles turning white with anticipation, ready to defend herself against any threat. She had come a long way since she first discovered the terrifying truth behind her virtual obsession. She had faced numerous obstacles and survived harrowing encounters, but her determination to put an end to the horror that had invaded her reality had never wavered. As she turned a corner, her heart skipped a beat. There, in the middle of the warehouse, stood the game character, larger than life, with its glowing red eyes fixed on her. It exuded an aura of malevolence, and Emily could feel her pulse quicken with fear. Without hesitation, she raised her bow and fired an arrow at the creature, but it moved with unnatural speed, dodging the attack effortlessly. Emily's mind raced as she tried to come up with a plan. She needed to find its weakness, to figure out how to defeat a character that had transcended the boundaries of the virtual world. The creature lunged at her, its sharp claws reaching out, and Emily barely managed to dodge, narrowly avoiding its deadly grasp. She retreated, her mind working furiously, searching for a way to gain an advantage. She noticed a flickering light in the corner of the warehouse and quickly formulated a plan. She led the creature towards the light, using her agility and wit to outmaneuver it. With a well-aimed shot, she shattered a gas pipe, causing a spark to ignite the gas, creating a massive explosion. The creature shrieked in pain as the flames engulfed it, its digital form glitching and distorting. Emily seized the opportunity and fired a final arrow, hitting its weak spot. The creature disintegrated, fading away into pixels before disappearing completely. Emily stood there, panting, covered in soot and sweat, but victorious. She had defeated the horror that had come to life from the game, and she had saved herself and others from its deadly grasp. As she made her way out of the warehouse, the first rays of dawn were breaking through the windows, casting a warm glow on her face. She stepped into the daylight, feeling a sense of relief and triumph. The ordeal was finally over, and Emily knew that she had learned a valuable lesson about the dangers of obsession and the consequences of blurring the lines between reality and virtuality. She walked away from the warehouse, leaving behind the nightmare that had haunted her, but carrying with her a newfound strength and resilience that would stay with her forever.